We picked up a 10 unit in 2009. Now, here's where the big problem came in. The reality of real estate is you make your money when you buy. And when you don't know how to buy right, you make a lot of mistakes. I didn't know what due diligence was. I had no idea how to do that. I was working with a broker and kind of going by what he was telling me, not knowing that he didn't know what he was talking about. With what we put down and everything, we lost about $130,000. That'll make you cry for a little while. And at that point, I said, I like real estate, but real estate doesn't like me. I don't know what I'm doing. We're getting rid of everything that we own, and we're never doing this again.
I do want to introduce our special guest for tonight, Mr. Steve Vigil. He's an experienced real estate investor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Who brought a nice crowd tonight. Experienced real estate investor who's bought his first rental property over 20 years ago. And since then, he's remodeled hundreds of homes. He's an expert in house flipping. He's an expert in rental properties. He's done owner's financing. He's a private money lender. And he's borrowed a lot of money along the way to fund those deals, thousands or millions of dollars, leveraging those relationships to help his passive and partners grow, but also his own portfolio. So, how you doing, Steve?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Did I miss anything there?
No, you did fantastic.
All right. So, I love having folks with such a long history in real estate on the show because it can be a wild ride.
Yes, it can.
And at times, it's just great. And the problem is, if you get in the market during those times, like nothing can go wrong. You don't really know what you don't know yet. But if you've been in the business for 7 plus, 10 plus, 20 plus years, you've gone through a thing or two.
Oh, yeah. We've seen lots of things happen.
Yeah, you've stubbed your toe, busted your knee, got punched in the face.
More than once.
more than once. So I love talking with folks like that because when I was getting started, that's what I was like a sponge. When I'd go into rooms like this and I would listen to folks who have done exactly what you're doing. I'm just like, I'm just taking notes because clearly you've done things that I haven't done. And there's folks in the room that can learn from that. But let's back it up.
Okay.
Like your first deal. Everyone remembers their first deal.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about your first deal.
Well, my first deal, when I got started in real estate, there was not very many groups out there. There was 2 groups that existed in this town that I knew about, Lifestyles Unlimited and the Rich Club. And I got involved with Lifestyles Unlimited, and which was a very different model than what I've learned over the years and changed everything I do compared to that model. But the first deal I did was through Lifestyles, and it was we were looking for deals on MLS, sending out tons of offers until we got somebody that said they were interested. But I really didn't know about, how to find a deal other than what I was being told by the realtor I was working with, who happened to be a guy that I worked with at my job, and that's how I found out about Lifestyles. So we found a house, and I think this house had maybe $5,000 of equity in it. I thought it was a real winner because I had $5,000 in equity. And, I had to do some sort of a rehab to get this house done. And I think we spent $5,000 or $6,000 doing this rehab, which really is just nothing more than a make ready. But in my mind, I was doing rehab. So I was very uneducated on really how it worked. And but we got the deal done, and then that make ready, Susan and I did that. I wasn't hiring anybody to do it because I didn't know anybody to hire. So we were over there doing the painting, and I did find someone who could change the carpet. So we changed carpet, which was your first mistake, instead of changing the floors out to hard or wood floors or tile or whatever. And then we finally got that done, and then it was. We were going by their model on trying to find a tenant, which was not using a realtor, not putting on an MLS, by putting your signs out, bandit signs out for rental and sign in the front yard. And so it took a while to get a tenant in there. And then I was the one that had to qualify the tenant, and didn't really know how to do that either. But which means we found a lot of bad tenants in the beginning that would pay the rent for a couple months and then be gone, or just stop paying the rent. And then, I'd have to go over, and back then I didn't really know about how to evict a tenant. So I took matters into my hands where I probably shouldn't have.
Just sit and get out.
Yeah, I did that a couple times, and fortunately, they my bluff worked and they moved. But I could have gotten a lot of trouble for doing that kind of stuff. But I thought that's what you had to do. And so yeah, the first one was a big experience, a very big experience. And but that's what started it.
So what surprises did you really run into when you went into that deal? You're thinking one thing, and then you learn some other things along the way. What were some of the biggest surprises that you found going through that process?
Well, there was a lot of surprises, and at first, you when you have tenants in a property for a short period of time like that, usually they don't take very good care of that property because you put bad tenants in there to start with. So you're going back in and doing another make ready and spend another $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Then you get another tenant in there because you don't know what you're doing, and they're in there for 3, 4, 6 months, and you get them out of there, and you got to go back in and do another make ready on it. So you're spending another $3,000, $4,000. So you're spending a lot of money, and you're not making anything. But you still got to pay your note. You still got to pay your insurance. Still got to pay the taxes, HOA. And that one it actually had an HOA because I didn't know better there either. so I had lots of expenses. And at the end of the year, when I'm doing my taxes, and the whole time going into this, everybody's saying, this is mailbox money. You get a rental property, you just wait for those checks to come every month, man. You're living the high hog, and like, no, it doesn't work that way at all. It's like, how come I lost $10,000 this year on that property? And so those were some early lessons, surprises that I was not expecting, and that we did that for probably the first 6, 7 rental properties that we got. Now, not every year it would be that way, because some years it'd like, hey, we made $10,000 this year off of all the properties, or we made 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever it was. But out of it, if I went over a 10-year spread on that, we made out of that 10 years, we lost money 8 of those years and made money 2 of those years. So I was not a very good landlord or a real estate investor at that point, but I had no education because I thought I was smart enough to do it by myself. Even though I was kind of following the lifestyle method, I had no idea what I was doing.
So it wasn't the mailbox money you were promised.
No, not at all. And that's I've heard that time and time again over the years, many, many times. And for it to be mailbox money, first off, you need to buy them right. You need to do it for a long time, and you need to have a lot of properties before you're making any kind of an income. And we learned that over many years and buying eventually lots and lots of rental properties.
Yeah. Whether it's the books or the YouTube videos or whatever, the allure of rental properties as mailbox money is very appealing. But anyone that's owned a rental property knows that it's not really as it seems. Now they are great equity builders. Correct. Over time.
Correct. And that was the saving grace of those early rental properties, was equity over time, or appreciation over time, and pay down. But all those years that you're doing it, you don't see that. That's never apparent to you. It's never in front of your face. And starting buying rental properties in 2021 or 2001, 2002, when we started, we hadn't come up to 2008, 2009 yet. Where a lot of things changed, but we were able to, fortunately we had jobs, and I made enough money at my job where when I was short with money that month, I could still make sure that the rent was, my note was paid. And I've always been a very big believer in, I make sure my bills are paid. And, but yeah, big surprises, in those early years.
What would you say is one of the more painful or hard learned lessons that you learned through that process?
Well, we had one deal. We had had 6 or 7 single families. And then, I still thought at that point, I mean, we're not necessarily making a lot of money, but we're at least making a little bit of money. And I'm a pretty smart real estate investor, so it's time we go bigger. We need to buy some multifamilies. So we started on our search for multifamilies, and we picked up an 8-unit and in 2008, and then we picked up a 10-unit in 2009. Now, here's where the big problem came in. The reality of real estate is you make your money when you buy, and when you don't know how to buy right, you make a lot of mistakes. And I didn't know what due diligence was at all, especially when it came to commercials, multifamily. I had no idea how to do that. And I was working with a broker and kind of, going by what he was telling me, not knowing that he didn't know what he was talking about. So obviously we paid way too much for that 10 unit, and it was 2009. And so, it's had a ton of deferred maintenance. We hired a management company that just didn't do us any favors, and we couldn't get rid of the property, not for what we were into it, not even close. So we had to hang on to this thing, but we made sure that our notes were paid every month. When there was deferred maintenance, we paid it. When we had to take care of tenants, we made sure tenants were taken care of, and it cost us a lot of money. And we held on to that property. We finally were able to dump that property in 2012. And the day that we dumped that property and I went to the attorney's office and closed, I brought a check for $20,000 to get out of that deal. But that was only part of it, because over that 3.5 year period that we owned it, with what we put down and everything, we lost about $130,000. That'll make you cry for a little while. And at that point, I said, okay, I like real estate, but real estate doesn't like me. I don't know what I'm doing. We're getting rid of everything that we own, and we're never doing this again. And that was my goal, to get rid of everything. But Susan didn't agree with me. And, we kind of went back and forth. And then probably 6 or 8 months went by, and she heard an advertisement on the radio, some national group coming through town and doing a free seminar. And Susan calls me up at work and says, guess what we're doing on Tuesday night, or whatever night it was. And she said, we're going to this thing. And I'm like, now you're going by yourself. I'm not going. No way. I'm done. But I did go. It happened to be close to my office, so we went. And that was the first time I sat down and realized, as a matter of fact, about 10 minutes after this little seminar started and the guy's up there talking, I turned to Susan and I said, we suck and we have no idea what we're doing. And if we're going to do this, we better get educated. So it kind of changed my perspective a little. Not that I really wanted to still do real estate, but it made me look at it differently for the first time. I obviously wasn't the smartest guy in the room, and I thought I was, especially in real estate, and that was kind of my thing was, I was a general manager of a company, been in, business for a long, long time, running this company. And I knew what I was doing very well with that, but I didn't know anything about real estate. So I was really only fooling myself that I thought I knew more than I did. But that was, the turning point to say, maybe if we're going to do this, we need to maybe get some education before we jump into the next deal. And that was when that changed.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot lately, and I call it a blueprint, like following a blueprint.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, I was able to get a mentor early on, but if you back up before that, like I had no idea what I was doing. I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Anybody read that book? Good book. Yeah. It doesn't really teach you how to invest in real estate, but it talks about real estate. I'm like, hey, that's cool. And I start calling all these real estate agents, and they're like, no, you can't do that. Like,
right?
No one's gonna sell you their house below market value. Like, no, I'm not gonna submit this offer that's half the value. Like, no. And I'm like, what? The book said to do it. And then I'm going to these bankers, and I'm in college. I have no job. I have no income. I have no net worth. And I'm going to these bankers with this like chicken scratch financial statement that I downloaded online. And like, horrible. I'm kind of I imagine what the banker did is took that with a very professional smile, went back and chuckled to all of his banker buddies and like this chump who's in his office with his financial statement saying I'm worth like, $780 because that was the value of my truck or something.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't have a blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, had I gone and gotten into a house, I would have probably lost a lot of money too. And because I got frustrated, then I saw this kind of like what you did. You heard something. Someone said, "Hey, look, we'll show you a blueprint." You took that, and then so that's what happened with me. So you went to this seminar, and what happened next? How did that help you rebound?
Well, we got involved with that group, which we spent more money, which was foolish from the perspective of spending the money, but it made me start thinking that, okay, I need to learn about things. And it started us down that path of really learning how real estate worked from an investor's perspective.
Just for, do you remember how much it was?
Yeah, we paid
Mm-hmm.
$25,000.
All right. Who here thinks $25,000 is a lot of money? Yeah. Okay. Rough ballpark. Have you made more than $25,000 since then?
Since then, we've made multiples and multiples more than $25,000. Yes.
Who here thinks $25,000 is a lot of money now? Okay. Who here would invest $25,000 to make multiples more than $25,000? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, that's what it took because, I mean, and even after we joined that first group, we were with them for a year and we didn't do one deal. Because as it turned out, that group, it's a national group and they didn't have anybody local here in Houston. So all of our coaching calls and coaching sessions were on by phone with somebody in a different state. So they're giving me real estate is based on where you're at. I mean, it's different everywhere. And so it made me start realizing that. And of course, they were telling us about how they were sending out letters and postcards and we were kind of doing it half-heartedly because I didn't really believe in it. But after that first year went by, that was when we actually found a local coach that really changed everything because this is a guy that held our hand. And of course, I was on him 24/7. When I had a question, I'll chase you down and find you to get the answer. I would take no for an answer. But after we hooked up with our local coach finally, I had my first contract, and of course we started off wholesaling because that's all we knew to do. I had my first contract 2 weeks after we started with him, and I had my second contract the week after that. And
do you remember what you made on those two deals?
The first one, I think we made $3,000 assignment fee, and the second one was probably a $4,000 or $5,000 assignment fee. And I mean, and
Not
back
bad in a few weeks.
Yeah. No, not at all. And that was, the average wholesale fee when we started. If we took all the wholesale fees that we made over the starting years of doing that, we averaged maybe $7,500 a deal. So my mentality was, okay, I need to do anywhere from 4 to 6 deals a month. And, we're still working full time, but that's what we started doing because we put in our 50 plus hours in corporate and then we put another 40 hours a week in real estate. I mean, we went forward. I mean, I had someone that was teaching me, taking me by the hand, telling me what to do, and I followed it and I did it and I didn't question it. What was my motto? When my mentor told me to do something, I did it immediately. I didn't question it. And there was something else. I don't remember what it was.
I like to say that's when you're committed and you're all in.
All in. I was 100% in. Yeah.
Because I jokingly tell, I've said before, like my mentor, like I was just dumb enough to believe that everything he said was true. And I was like, look, if he said it's true, I'm just going to go do it. And
right. Exactly. And that's what we did. We just did it. No question about it. Now you stayed to go do that. We did it. And I'm not one to like to talk about numbers a whole lot, but what really was the convincing side of that was from doing that, working full time and doing that in our first 6 months in assignment fees of $5,000, $6,000, $8,000. In 6 months, we made put $106,000 in the bank
from a $25,000 investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, that was when I said, okay, that's worth it. I still got to make more back to make up for the 10 unit, but it didn't take much longer. We had made that money back.
You had a blueprint now.
Yeah. And we followed it. And we also realized that, and we've done this with every different type of investing that we've done over the years. I mean, we build a criteria. This is my buy box. It's got to fit in my buy box, or I just say no. I walk away. And it might not fit in a rental buy box, but it still could fit maybe in a flip buy box. But if it doesn't fit, it doesn't go in that deal, or we just say no. And I say no a lot. Don't never be afraid to say no. No is a good thing.
How are you investing in properties today? So going through that, you taking the bumpy road. now you found the highway.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the highway. How did you move past that, the wholesaling, and into actually holding properties again? And then how did that transcend to how you're investing?
Well, I'll kind of go through that, because we like I say, we wholesaled, and then as we were wholesaling, we learned about we were learning about how private money worked. And so we, in my wholesaling days, back then we used to, for the few meetings that were going on, we used to get up and pitch our deals at every meeting. It was either at the beginning or the end of the meeting that you could pitch your deals. And I had to make sure that at every event we went to, that I had one or two deals I could go up and pitch in front of people. And trust me, I was terrified. I didn't get up in front of people. I mean, I'd get up there, my hands would be shaking. I'd be sweating. My heart would be beating so hard I thought it was going to jump out of my chest. But I knew if I didn't do it, then nothing's going to change. And I would get up there time and time again. And even though we moved deals and sold deals at events, my goal was to build a reputation for who we were as investors, that we were hardworking, we were honest and ethical, and we were willing to work with anybody that needed it. And we would go out and find deals for anybody that they wanted to. And actually, one of my very first buyers is sitting right there from all those years ago. And she said, "This is what I'm looking for." So now I had a model of a particular type of property that I had a buyer was looking for that I could go out and start buying for. So we did that. And then as we were doing that and building that reputation, then investors started coming to us that had money, saying, if you're coming across good deals, we see these deals that you've got. If you ever decide that you might want to keep one, give me a call. I might be willing to finance that for you. So that's how we started buying properties to flip, keep and flip. And then we, over time, we kept wholesaling and we went into flipping properties. And then we got really good at flipping properties, and we were flipping a lot of properties. And just like you've done, flipping, had 8-10 projects going on at a time. And once we got really good at doing that, then we transitioned into, okay, the rental properties we started off with, we had sold those because we had them a long time. So we did make money when we sold them because they had equity. And so we did make, it did turn out good at the end, except for the 10 unit. But then we started buying rental properties on the new model of how we knew how to invest. And so then we started building a very large rental portfolio again in a whole different manner that turned out to be a very successful rental portfolio. And then we've done, owner finance stuff there, which has brought us all these many years down to today. And, now, we're looking for some commercial deals. We've got a very specific buy box for the asset classes that we look at. And we're private lenders. So we lend to investors for investment deals. But because we always used private money, we have a very good system in place. We analyze those deals. I run numbers on every one of them. I look at them, and I know lots of areas of town. So I know good areas and bad areas. And, it's really been beneficial to us because of all the legwork I did over all the early years of driving in all the counties around and learning neighborhood after neighborhood after area. And that's, you know, a lot of what we do now. And it's good.
Were you getting these private lenders on? Were you doing like a temp to perm where they're helping with acquisition, you flip it, and then you refinance conventional, or were you getting them where they're okay holding the note for 3, 5+ years?
A lot of both. We with a lot of our private lenders, you know, we started as we started learning them. We have a lot of short-term private lenders. They just want to do short-term. So then we would refinance them out. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't refinance them out maybe with another private lender that wants to do a longer term. We've got private lenders that we've got 15-year amortized notes on, 10-year amortized notes on. So as we've educated ourselves and educated a lot of our private lenders of how we work, benefits, pros, cons, and depending on where they are in life has depended on how we refinance that property. We've also worked with some small community banks in town. We've got very good relationships with, and there's some other avenues of lenders out there that we've worked with. So and you know, when you're looking at commercial deals, I've got a couple private lenders that might, you know, finance some of those deals, but I've also got bank contacts. But now we've got financials and things that we can take to those banks and they'll lend us that money. And of course, we know what criteria they're looking for, so we know what we need to bring into them to get that financing. And I'm not going to bring a deal into them like that because I know what makes money and what doesn't make money, especially nowadays. So, you know, my criteria is very aligned with the bank if we're going to use institutionalized money like that.
So you're doing a lot of private money now. What's some of the challenges that you're seeing when investors are bringing you opportunities to potentially loan on?
Well, I just try to teach them before you send me the deal, do your basic numbers because that's going to tell you everything. And you know, we've always bought our deals at 70% minus repairs. We always borrowed money from all of our private lenders at 70% minus repairs, and we lend at 70% minus repairs. If you go to all the hard money guys out there, they do the exact same thing because they're looking out for themselves. I don't want to lend to somebody on a deal that's going to be a failure for everybody. I don't want to have to foreclose on you. That's a pain in the butt, and nobody wins in that. You know, everybody thinks if you foreclose, yeah, just take the property back. No, there's a lot more to it than that. And you never make money when you foreclose. So, so we want to set our borrowers up to have success. And that means I say no 95+% of the time. and you know, and like I said, I run our numbers, but I also have got a guy, a third party appraiser that does very good ARV appraisals, and he gets out there in a few days and you know, we look at those numbers. We look really hard at it. Because we want to have success. I want to see all of our borrowers have success. We want to get paid back without any hassles or refinanced out. And you know, it's just doing smart business.
Love it, love it. All right, couple questions that I ask every guest. These 4 questions.
I'm in trouble now.
And then we'll open up to audience Q&A. So if you've got a question for Steve, get it handy. So first, if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Well, I was 20 like a really, really long time ago. I would say probably the biggest problem most of us have when we're 20 is we think we know everything and we don't ever want to ask for help. And big mistake. I mean, asking for help, especially when you don't know something, is a very good thing to do. I learned that a lot of years later by making a lot of bad decisions. And that would probably be the biggest thing that always stands out to me is be more patient, be willing to get help, and don't think you know everything all the time.
What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Well, the first book I ever read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I've always been a person when it comes to books. There's just a couple of them because you know, when I find a book, I find something that I can relate to, and then I highlight it as I read it, and it's something I can go back to time and time again and build off of it for what we're doing and the way I think. And one of those books is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And I find this very true just in life. It's not about, a lot of times we think we have to go out there and make that big deal, do that one big thing. And the reality is, if we do small things consistently over and over and over again and build a pattern with it, that's how you build your forward motion and build success over time. Because when it comes to building success, success takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, unless you get lucky and win the lotto or something. So that's a very important book to me. And then another one would be Success is Not an Accident. It's by Tommy Newberry. And it talks about, if you want success, you've got to plan it out. You've got to work for it. It's not going to be given to you. And if you don't define a plan, which we've talked about numerous times in many ways here, defining that plan, and then following the plan. Over the years, I've taught so many people to make a plan, and they call me 2 months later and I say, how are you doing? How's that plan going? And they're working on something entirely different. I say, why aren't you following your plan? You've got to follow the plan. You've got to be committed. And when we commit, we've got to commit to ourselves. It doesn't matter about anybody else. Even when Susan and I started this business, I had to commit to myself what I wanted to do, and she had to commit what she wanted to do. And then we had to collaborate together. Fortunately, we both wanted to go down the same path. Otherwise, it never would have worked. But you've got to commit to yourself. I mean, it's just like, in this day and age, everybody's so hung up on the social media and what everybody says. I could care less what anybody says. I don't follow any of that nonsense. The only person I have to worry about is myself. And that's what, the success is not an accident. And even the compound, they fall in line with that type of thinking. And that's how I've always thought. Now, I'm older than a lot of you in here. So, I go back to a lot of the old school way of doing things and thoughts, and processes in business. And I'm not the tech savvy person by any means, but it works for me. And it's how I think. And I don't make things complicated. We always tried to run our businesses as simple as possible. Yes, we have done complicated, innovative deals before, because you have to do that. But we only do that when it comes up and we have to. Otherwise, we keep it as simple as possible. So, but as far as books goes, those are the two that probably have helped me the most.
Love it. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Oh, that's a tough one. From a personal standpoint, taking better care of myself, being healthy, eating better. I've always been pretty good at exercising, but I exercise even more now. And family. I've got kids, grandkids, and great grandkids, and I'm still young. I want to spend a lot of time with them. I want to do things with them. And that's become something that's very important where we are in life now. And we're going to keep going that direction. And we can do all that whenever we want, which is great. We've always been able to be up pretty much on our own schedule. But we can still do the type of real estate we want to do, and continue to do that. And when it all boils down to it at the end, we're going to be looking back at memories with family, and not how many hours we worked. So,
how can people reach out to you?
Well, I've got a card, so I'm happy to give those out. But everybody that knows me has my phone number. My phone number is 713-562-5252. It's a very simple number. It's my cell phone. And then my personal email is steve@svsm, Sam Victor, Sam Mary, LLC.com. And you can also go, we have also got our website, SVSM website. And then we've also got the Wealth Club, and you can reach out to us through the Wealth Club on that website as well.
Love it, love it. Thank you. All right, we're going to open up for questions. Who's got a question for Steve?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Who would you say is the most influential person in real estate you come across, and why did they leave an impact on you?
Wow, that I don't know if there's anybody. I mean, I have a lot of people that have influenced and helped me. I don't necessarily have an individual that has uh, been more so than others. And if I said somebody, it would be a local person. It wouldn't be, I mean, I've listened to Tony Robbins and all those guys, but and I listen to him. I've known Brant for a very, very long time, and Brant's actually been a very big influence over the years. And we've followed in a lot of things together, and very like-minded with a lot of things that we've done.
You're talking about Brant Phillips?
Brant Phillips, yes, right. Sorry, I'm looking at him. He's just Brant.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, who's next?
Hotel California. Okay, I wanted to just ask quickly, do you do commercial? You said commercial. Do you do land and construction lending?
No,
You don't do land and
no new
construction?
construction, no.
And what
no,
about land?
No
Just
land.
no land. Okay, that's all I want to know.
Right now, that's in our opinion, those are too risky. Because when we start off if we lend on something like that, my collateral is very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I lend on that, it's going to be, I'm not going to, it's going to be, 40% LTV.
Yeah, that's what they're going for. Yeah, 40, 30,
it's going to be very
40%,
low
yeah.
because you've got nothing there. And I've built stuff before, and I know the painstaking things you have to go through permitting, through if it's city, county, all different kinds of things that delay projects for very, very long periods of time. And so, from a borrower's perspective, you got to show me you got a lot of money that you can make all those payments.
That's the key. There's very few lenders that do that. Land,
Right now, it's
a lot of people
tough.
are buying land. They want a lot of clients.
There's
for
a lot
that.
of it for sale that is just sitting there too. So yeah, and it's not something I would go after myself.
Mhm.
So
Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
Seller's financing.
Yep, that's the best way to do that. Yes.
Yeah, because banks, there's nothing you can do to land. Like, so unless it's 40%, 30%, that's their security.
Yeah, and like I say, if you're going to develop it, I mean, depending on where it's at, you might have to get city council approval. There's so many things that have to be approved that can be very painful. And then at the end of the day, you can spend a lot of money, have that land for a year, 2 years, and then the determination is they're not going to let you build on it. I've seen that happen too. And yeah, then nobody wins. Everybody loses in those situations. So
Next question.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for coming out. One question for you that I have is, what are some ways that you look for whenever you're looking for people that you work with for your services, like lenders? How do you gauge somebody's trust, and how do you know that you for sure want to work with them?
well, typically that's a very good question. You've got to have a good feel for a person just right out of the gate. When you're talking to them, do they present themselves as who they say they are? And depending on what kind of relationship you're trying to build, oftentimes it starts off with a small deal. And we did that a lot when we first started getting more private lenders. We'd start off with a small deal, and I was like, hey, or I'd start off saying, hey, if you'll do the acquisition, we'll take care of the rehab out of our pocket, just so you can see how we work and see how our processes work. And so building trust is something that's going to be done over time. And I think we've always had a pretty good eye for people. We've known lots and lots of people in this business over the years. I would say that the majority of them we would not work with. I'll be cordial and say hi at every event I see them at, but I go, no, we would not ever do business with them, because I know what kind of a person they are, or I've seen the way they do business with other people. So that's always a very good judge, especially if you're out at networking events. You can get a pretty good feel for who people are, or when something goes bad, listen to the rumors going around, and, typically they're about the same person multiple times, and that that's not a good person to try and build a relationship with. But that was why in the beginning, when we started looking for private money, we never asked. And even to this day, I have never asked to borrow money from my private lenders. I build relationships and I present opportunities. That's all I've ever done. And by doing it the way we've done it, by presenting who we are and how we do business, is what's given us the success that we've had.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Yeah, what you just said, I said on the coaching call earlier today with our members, it's opportunities. Like, you're not soliciting money. You're not asking to borrow money. You're presenting opportunities. And that switch is powerful. I know Brant spent like 2.5, 3 hours on Monday with our students, really breaking that down in detail.
Yeah, I mean, that's key. I mean, yeah, and even to this day, if we have a deal that comes to us, I mean, it's never a deal. It's always an opportunity. And we reach out to one of our investors. I say, hey, we've got this opportunity. I'm going to send it to you, and I'll lay out an email explaining everything, how it all works, like we always have done, all the numbers, and ask, hey, if you're interested in this opportunity, let me know, and then we'll talk again, take the next step, see what we need to do, and have never approached it any differently than that. Never, hey, I need to borrow money, and also think of it this way: your investors, they're looking for opportunities just like you are. They're trying to put their money to work. But they're trying to find people that they can work with for long periods of time on multiple deals. And that takes building a lot of trust. And typically it starts off with small deals. I had one investor we worked with for many, many years. Unfortunately, he passed a few years ago. Was a great guy. But if you saw him in a crowd, he'd be the guy you're going, oh, be careful of that guy. You don't want to necessarily go talk to him. He just didn't know. And he stalked us for a couple months, 3 or 4 months, and it'd be at networking events. It's like, if you guys are interested and you need some money on a deal, just come and talk to me. And I'd always kind of blow him off. And one day I'm driving I was out, and we had several proper deals going on, and then I just put 3 properties under contract, and he calls me, and it's like I took his call, and I ended up sitting and talking to him. I sat in a Jack in the Box parking lot and talked to him for about an hour. And told him I had 3 deals that needed funding. I said, I'll send them to you. You show me, which one you might want to look at, and then we'll talk from there. And so when I got back home a couple hours later, I sent them to him. He calls me up about 10 minutes later and says, would it be okay if I funded all 3 of those deals for you? Yeah, but
I don't know. I gotta check.
Yeah. So, but it was, because he had kept seeing us up in front of people, deals we were doing, the way that we interacted with other people at networking events, and he did not go out and lend to anybody else. We worked with him for years, and we were the only people that he would let give his money to put to work. And it's strange how you build relationships, but they come in all shapes and sizes. If I could spend hours talking about how we came across different private lenders that we've had over the years, and building relationships and friendships with. And it's just present yourself as a real person, and being honest and being transparent. That's really what it boils down to, and doing that all the time and anywhere you're at.
Love it. Thanks for coming on the show. Give it up for Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Been fun.
It's good.